now we're split between whether we want to dive into the analytics and understand at least the thinking. You don't have to agree with it, but the thinking behind those teams doing what they're doing. And then combine that with what I think is often our snap reaction here, which is that we hate the idea of them going for two simply because it messes with our sensibilities. It's almost like anti-tradition, which, I don't know, by now in sports, we got to get over that, right? Like the third baseman is playing second base,
right,
and you're going for two, and you're not allowed to touch quarterback, and all of that stuff has changed.
Well, I remember in NFL where you couldn't go for two. There was no two-point conversion, and we're only going back probably, I got to be 30 years. Yeah. I mean, 25 years maybe when they put the two-point conversion in to the NFL. So it used to not be an option, and we all realize that it's more exciting when you can go for two. So the touchdown being 6 is not an automatic 7. Now it could be 6, 7, or 8. And in fact, you could have the PAT blocked and the other team could get 2 back the other way, which is very rare. So your 6 can actually become 4 if the other team blocks your PAT, etc. But the two-point conversion, much more exciting than the old 20-yard PAT. So I'm in favor of the idea of it, but in a spot like that, maybe it's because I'm old-fashioned, you're down 1, you score a great touchdown, a game-altering, big bomb, momentum-changing play, and then you don't get the two-point conversion, and so the feeling, forget the analytics and the spreadsheet and the probability, the human beings involved in all of that, you realize after that sequence, you're still losing the football game. And analytics, to me, will never be able to account for the most important part of all of this in sports, and that's the human element, because those human beings, Max Crosby and Devontae Adams and all the rest of the Raiders, you walk away from that knowing that you still have work to do to tie this game up.
Well, here's where I do think sometimes the human element is coming in and we snap to, oh gosh, the spreadsheet. Well, wait a minute. Maybe Josh McDaniels is thinking in terms of the human side and not the spreadsheet, because the spreadsheet for the Raiders, at least last night, was pretty even as far as do you go for 2, do you not go for 2. But the human side is, my dudes are not stopping the Chiefs. The Chiefs had scored on 5 consecutive drives. And so my guys aren't stopping the Chiefs. So why not? Sort of becomes the answer. And I know it's easy today to wake up and go, well, because they lost. But Kyle brought up, I thought, really good points to us last night as we're all talking this out. And he goes, look, if you get 2, you're up 31-30, what do you need? You need a stop. If you kick the extra point, it's tied. What do you need? You need a stop. If you don't get the 2, what do you need? You need a stop. So none of that changes. If you kick the 1, you're essentially playing for overtime, where I think McDaniels accurately feels like I don't like my chances there either. So we need a stop no matter what. We cannot let the other team go get a field goal no matter what. Why not, if we get the stop, take the effort to have the lead when that happens so we don't have to go to overtime? Or if we're trailing, we still need that stop, and we'll go get a field goal. And hell, if Devontae Adams doesn't bobble the ball, Dibs, they probably get that field goal.
Well, I don't know if they get that field goal, because field goals are not as automatic and not as guaranteed as we once knew.
They are with that kicker. That kicker makes them all.
Yeah, is he 100% this year? I'd have to check the stats. Kansas City missed one, and there was defensive holding, so they got another set of downs, and they went out and scored a touchdown. So it's an interesting point in terms of the logic angle of it. But for me, I would rather be in a tie game knowing that I need to get a stop. And if I get that stop, then I have a chance to win the game. Or, as you like to say, hole in 1 or 2. If I get the stop and then I don't score, I have overtime as a safety net. I go for 2, I don't get it. Now I need a stop and a score. And by the way, you got the stop and you ended up on your own 5-yard line with 1 timeout, and you didn't get the score. You didn't even get a chance to kick for the victory. So turns out it backfired. It's a losing proposition. If you go for the PAT And that plays out the exact same way. You get a stop, you get the ball back, you don't score, you've got overtime.
Yeah, but you pointed out the Chiefs play that next drive very differently if they're tied versus having a 1-point lead. They play it more aggressively. And again, the Raiders did not stop them at all in the second half. To answer your question, yes, Daniel Carlson is 100% this year. He is 15 for 15 on the year. He is, quite frankly, right alongside Justin Tucker.
He's automatic.
Yeah, he is absolutely a fantastic kicker. So if you've got him from 50 yards in, I think that sucker is ball game, and they're going to win. Here's kind of where I come down on this, though, is that it messes with our sensibilities because we're going through something as sports fans where we're being forced to sort of look at it a different way. Should we go for 2? Should we constantly go for it on 4th down? But what I also think is whoever we're rooting for, whatever they do, whenever it doesn't work, we're going to call them idiots. Like, I've listened to everybody in this city for weeks now, if not years. Damn it, Shanahan, why don't you be more aggressive? Why don't you go for it once in a while? Twitter, even after a 2-game win streak and a 22-point win, we still got people. This idiot Kyle Shanahan won't go for it on 4th down. Then you flash to a game like last night, and here's everybody to go, look at these dummies going for it when they should just kick the one. Come on. There are analytics. I do believe these guys are actually running their gut and their people and their thought about the game situation. There are some things that are out of pocket. Brandon Staley with the Chargers is a nut job, and his own star receiver was tweeting, what the hell are we doing, when he made that call the other day against Cleveland. So I'm not saying that we can't question this stuff, but you also got to pick a side. Do you want more aggression or not? Because I hear a lot of people say, Kyle Shanahan, why don't you be more aggressive? Then they watch Andy Reid coach, and they go, oh, this is too arrogant for my taste.
But situational, and it depends on your personnel as well. And you mentioned this in our thread in the email. If you've got a defense as good as the 49ers do, that changes the way you approach being aggressive. Last night, this is the one area where I can defend McDaniels because you haven't really done much to stop Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City. So you're looking at that down 1, 2-point conversion, a chance to take the lead that you had at 17-0, by the way, in the first half. So we can look at why that lead got squandered in another portion of the program. But you had a chance to take the lead on Kansas City, and maybe you didn't feel like your defense was that great, so this is your best chance to still win the game, avoid overtime, because if you do kick the PAT and you get a stop in regulation, you're probably going to need to stop Patrick Mahomes again in overtime to win the game. So now the thinking would be, if we tie this game, we need to stop Mahomes not only once but twice, assuming that we get the ball back in regulation and don't score. In terms of Kyle Shanahan, I would love to see him be more aggressive in spots. This game against Carolina, to me, there's no point, there's no period in that game where you look at it and you say he should have been more aggressive here or there. And Kyle Shanahan is going to coach a certain way because he's got maybe the best defense in the NFL.
Well, he does have that.
Yeah.
However, I also felt like watching the Chiefs last night, it brings up a little PTSD. So, in less than 2 weeks, the Niners are going to see this team. Does Kyle Shanahan need to coach differently? Does he need to sort of adopt the way that the Chiefs go about it? Because the thought process is, even with your great defense, you're not holding the Chiefs to the 11 to 12 points that you're holding the rest of the league to. You're going to need to outscore them a little bit. Are we wanting a different Kyle Shanahan, or does Kyle Shanahan need to not be like Avery Johnson? Remember years ago, go back to the We Believe Warriors, and he's got the MVP in the league, right? And now the Dallas Mavericks, as the 1 seed, are like, we're switching up our starting lineup on opening night, and they get run off and out of the playoffs. So what do you want to see Kyle Shanahan do when he goes against this Chiefs squad? Do you want him to start going for 2 and start playing an offensive brand of football, or do you want him to trust that these 49ers can beat that team?
It depends on the flow of the game, and this is where analytics is crap. and you can go ahead and cut that and keep it and put it in the archives and put it wherever you want, Spadoni, because it's all situational. If you're in a game with Kansas City and the Niners score to cut it to 45-44, and it's the same situation as last night, four and change left to go, full rack of timeouts both ways, yeah, maybe you go for it. But if it's a game where it's 9-7 or 9-8 and you've held them in check the entire time, well, now it's a different sort of a calculus for me because your defense has been dominant. So I don't think you can just look at the spreadsheet and have the card say, this is when you go for 2, this is when you don't. That's a valuable tool, but a lot of it is what's going on in the game. And last night, the Raiders were in a spot where they probably felt like we weren't going to stop Kansas City, so you ended up stopping Kansas City. And if you get the 2, Kansas City's more aggressive, they probably go down and kick a field goal anyway.
Well, and their field goal kicker is nowhere near as automatic as normal with Butker out. So Who knows how that would have played out. I want to spotlight something you just said and ask you about it, though. Do you really believe that across the board? You just said analytics is crap. Do you believe that?
I believe the people who look at analytics as the end-all, be-all, that's crap. And I look at your beloved San Francisco Giants and the way that they most times blindly play the matchup game. That, to me, is a poor approach. And I think you saw it with your Giants this year, where players, veteran players in particular, bristled at some of the analytical decisions that were made, whether it's Carlos Rodon unhappy with a quick hook, whether it's Jock Peterson getting pulled after a 2-homer performance, whether it's Brandon Belt not being allowed to face lefties. I think that when you lean too much on just the pure analytics, that's where you alienate the human beings involved. And I made light of this in the changeover, but I don't know if Davante Adams truck rolls or steamrolls that guy if they would have just taken the 1 point and tied the game up.
Well, I think Davante Adams with it twofold. First of all, if they win the game, he doesn't push anybody. If they lose the game, he probably does. And secondly, on the play of the game, he and another receiver ran into one another, and so his frustration was at an all-time high. He's probably going to be suspended by that. He probably should.
Suspended?
It's absolutely not okay.
No.
But
fined, yes.
He's going to get suspended for a game.
I don't think.
I bet you right now.
I mean, where's Rex Chapman with the classic block charge? Because that was a block. The guy's moving.
Yeah. No, right. He wasn't set.
It was a block.
It was a block, and I just believe in this isn't. I'm not even saying what should or shouldn't happen. There's a different angle of it where because Davante actually said real quick on this after the game, he said this guy it just sort of appeared like he came out of nowhere and was right in front of me. The angle that most of us got makes it look like, man, what are you talking about? Like you just being real aggressive. Sports Center, if you go to their Twitter feed, has an angle on this, almost the point of view of Davante as he's walking, and you can sort of see it in a different light where it surprises the hell out of him, almost like, he felt sort of defensive, but doesn't matter, doesn't excuse it. It's not good, and I do believe the NFL is going to act on this because of the look, and the guy has filed a police report.
That's so
and
great.
all of this.
Police reports, man, I mean, can we all just keep filing? So you've got Jordan Poole, who gets his face caved in by a teammate, not filing a police report. Flair guy at the Niner game who gets tackled by Bobby Wagner, police report. And this guy who, you got pushed by Davante Adams. I don't think that this man is in the protocol. Police report. Do the police not have better things to do than to take your reports?
Apparently not. Actually, and you know this, most police offices, if you give them a call, they are just hanging out, doing exactly that, taking reports. That's not the way it works in TV shows, but that's real life. Anyway, back to what you said, though, because this has gotten to a point. I got to question this. This idea that analytics is crap, and in this city at least, what we do whenever we get to this conversation is go straight to the Giants as if this is the only team doing it, as if this is the only sport doing it. Literally, every single team in every single sport, at least to a certain level, is doing this. So if it's crap and if it's nerds, why is everybody doing it? Why has every team decided that this is the way to go, and we're here to say they're wrong? Like, I have a hard time buying that all of the teams have all made the wrong decision.
It's groupthink is what it is. And so you get into a situation where if you're not using analytics now, you're considered behind the times or you're old school. Bruce Bochy probably used analytics in ways that we never knew, but he was known for...
He said so on this show, Dibs. He said that to us. In fact, he hates the idea that people say he just ran around and got led by his gut.
Right, but at the same time, when a decision had to be made, he made the decision based on what he thought, not what the spreadsheet indicated that he should do. And the automaton nature with which many organizations are run speaks to the new analytics. And if you're not using all the possible data to govern your decisions, you're considered behind the times. And I look at this as just another example. And you go for two, and the spreadsheet tells you to go for two. Even though the numbers that our Kyle Madsen produced show you that the outcomes were about 50-50 based on go for two or go for one, that one could have gone either way. The old school sensibility and the eye test tells you go for the tie. Kick the point, get the tie, and live to fight another day.
Yeah, but do you see what we're doing here? We're going, the spreadsheet told him to do it, but it didn't. The spreadsheet didn't tell him to do it. So if it is an even-Steven deal, what's the tiebreaker? Well, that's a coach using his gut. I guess my point is this. My point is this. The guys who used to do it used analytics a hell of a lot more than we're saying they did. And the guys now are using their gut more than we say they do. Anytime we see something we don't like, we're like, damn spreadsheet. I don't know what the spreadsheet says. And even if the spreadsheet does say something, these managers, these coaches, they are still making decisions. They are using their gut to a certain degree. That is the tiebreaker. That is Andy Reid going, all right, does the spreadsheet, and actually this is a question. I don't know the answer. I have a guess. When you get a touchdown late in that game to go up by 7 30-23,
yep.
What does the spreadsheet say to do? I don't know if the spreadsheet says to go for two or to go for one.
Absolutely. You make it a two-score game.
Do you?
Absolutely.
Is that what the spreadsheet says?
Yes, because if you don't get the two, then you're forcing the Raiders to score and get their own two to take the lead on you, which, by the way, they tried to do and failed.
Right, exactly. But if you just kick the one, you're forcing the Raiders to not only get the touchdown, but then you also have to get the two just to tie you. I don't know what the spreadsheet says, but I know that Andy Reid looks at that and goes, okay, spreadsheet's over here. Spreadsheet doesn't know I got Mahomes. That has to change the calculus on it. And sometimes that burns him. It burned him right before halftime against the Bengals in the AFC title game last year. There's no doubt. But if he's like, I got Mahomes, and let's say, by the way, you're playing the Steelers. Like, sure, you're playing the Raiders. They've at least got a capable quarterback. What if you're going against the Panthers? Give me the Niners opponent last week. And I'm thinking, kick the one, because A, there's no way this Baker Mayfield dude's going to go get a touchdown on me. And if he does, then I still have that 2 points in my hip pocket that they're probably not going to get, which is a less than 50-50 proposition. So I think these guys are running the spreadsheet, and then they are running it through the actual circumstances that are on the field.
Right, and the circumstances on the field last night were Josh McDaniels giving the ball to a guy who had been pretty dominant. Josh Jacobs had a really good game, and yet you come up short in a spot where you have the most perfect kicker in football, and you say, no, Captain Perfection, we're going to take a chance from the 2.5-yard line to see if we can't take the lead. I questioned it before it happened. Certainly, I questioned it after it happened, and the Raiders lost the game. So you can tell me that it was the spreadsheet saying that it was a 50-50 call, and he went with his gut. Well, his gut was wrong because you lost the game, and that's the nature of sports and all of this from an analysis standpoint. When Gabe Kapler leans on the spreadsheet and they win 107 games, he's manager of the year, he's a genius. When he does the exact same thing the following year and he follows the exact same process and they go 81-81, suddenly he's mediocre.
No, I'm not arguing that it didn't work. Obviously, they lost the football game. What I'm arguing is that we just snap to that's the spreadsheet. And I know every time we don't like a call and it's sort of a nouveau risk that we're not used to, we say that's the spreadsheet. And I don't think that's accurate, especially since even we looked at the spreadsheet last night and it was even Steven. And if there was a tiebreaker, the tiebreaker was you probably should have gone for the one. So if you go against the spreadsheet, that's your gut.
Yeah, I don't think it's ever
I don't know
just
what else
the
that could be.
Right? I don't think it's ever just the spreadsheet. If it is, then we seriously would have machines down on the sideline.
Yeah,
we would
why
have
would you be
straight up
paying for
robots.
that?
Exactly.